Welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals, Grow and Relate. This video we're talking about know what you need. And in this video, this is the second part of a 4-part series. The first part was know what you want, and this one is know what you need. And then we're going to do know what you think. And the fourth one will be make your own decisions. And these all tie into learning who you are functionally. And this is very important because who we think we are, how we would describe ourselves to others, isn't actually how our behavior pans out over time. So it's important that you observe yourself and know these things about yourself experientially. Okay? Now, this episode was written with young men in mind, but the principles apply to anyone regardless of gender, age, or relationship status. And while this is about you, the young man, this information is also counterintuitively connected to attraction and why the women you're interested in might not be attracted to you. Now, we covered that more in part 1 on know what you want, so we're not going to cover that a lot here, but what we said in that video also applies to this video, so you can get it there. So the key phrase we're going to focus on is know what you need, and then the other phrase is say what you need. Now, this has been very transformative in my life and relationship. I've been with my wife, Paula, for 6 years, and one of the things that she has learned over the years was this simple thing, say what you need. And this was a little alarming to me. It seems so simple, first of all. The first way it hit me was like, this is simple, we can do that. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I don't really even know what I need, okay? So that's kind of interesting to be able to pay attention to what it is that you need, in addition to our other video on know what you want. These are needs, not wants, okay? So before you can say what you need to know what you need. Now, this is both personally and relationally. So what you need if you're by yourself and single is going to be different from what you will need in the context of a relationship. So bear that in mind as we move forward. So the foundation, you're responsible for you. Jordan Peterson, he says, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping, or treat yourself like someone you're responsible for taking care of. And you might think of if you had a child or a pet, you'd ensure that they had proper sleep, right food, the right hygiene. You'd be kind to them. You would offer encouragement. You wouldn't speak harshly to them or shame them or push them past their limits. So you want to ask yourself, are you doing this for yourself? Do you get the right amount of sleep, the right amount of hygiene, the right amount of food? Are you kind to yourself? Or are you traumatizing yourself constantly? Okay? So you need to discover your needs, and you have to go beyond what your concept of virtue or duty is, because those can cloud what you think your needs are. Many of us, especially from rigid systems like where I came from, were rigid fundamentalists or very strict or very enthusiastic patriots, that sort of thing. We can confuse moral behavior or dutiful behavior with self-care, and the two are not the same. So one way you can help come to this realization yourself is to learn how to express your own experience of differentiating the two. Express your experience by writing it down, thinking out loud to yourself, talking to someone that you trust, knowing how to be virtuous but not how to meet your own emotional and physical and relational needs can be problematic. It's also important to know what you need, because it's important for the other people in your life. If you don't know what you need, then you become a liability to the other people in your life, who eventually, when you come to rock bottom or at the end of the rope, they are going to have to help you because you did not help yourself. If you know what you need, you can work ahead of time to provide what you need so that others don't have to come pick up the slack where you should have taken care of yourself. So it may sound selfish on the front end to be taking care of yourself all the time, but it's actually a really great way to love the other people in your life by taking care of yourself so that you don't become a liability to them. That's very important. One thing you can use is Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a diagnostic tool for what you need. such as physiological. Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating nourishing food? Are you avoiding substances that harm your mood? Do you feel secure in your living space? Is your schedule chaotic or stable? Do you feel emotionally connected to anyone, like you belong to a person or to a group or to a family? Are you regularly greeted with warmth? Do you have autonomy? Are you spoken to with respect? Okay, do you respect yourself? Everyone needs respect, but other people will only respect you as much as you respect yourself. The way you treat yourself is how you are training other people to treat you. So think about how you need to be treated and treat yourself that way. In other words, don't put up with substandard conditions or food or situations or circumstances or degrees of loyalty, those kinds of things. If you do, other people will dish that out to you. And then self-actualization. Do you have creative outlets, goals, purpose, practices, and do you help that help you grow? One way to look at yourself is as someone who's constantly becoming, okay? Doing, being, and becoming. And so you could ask yourself, who am I becoming? And if you have goals set, well, what do I need in order to become that kind of thing? Some problems are solved by having things, and some problems are solved by becoming something, okay? So what do you need to become in order to solve the perennial problems in your life? You might want to start tracking your body and your mood to figure out what you need. Like, what foods affect your mood? What environments make you feel safe or anxious? What habits restore you? If you don't know what you need, your body might. I used to have a habit of drinking sugary sodas a lot, and I was also had a problem with depression. Well, I did not know this. I did not understand the causality of this until I had not drunk sugary drinks for years, and then I went back and had one just to kind of spoil yourself, and then I noticed myself getting sad and depressed very fast, and I did not know that drinking these sugary Mountain Dew drinks was altering my mood all the time. I had no idea. So one thing I need is to keep that much sugar away from me for a variety of reasons. Not only is it good for you health-wise, but it turns out to be good for me emotionally and mentally as well. Now, the second part of this segment that I'm talking about is knowing what you need in relationship. And you have to address the myth of mind reading. Now, we started off with saying what you need. You got to say it. You have to say it. You're never going to have a partner. Ladies, listen to me. You're never going to have a partner that can read your mind, okay? Your partner, no matter how intuitive or loving, cannot read your mind and never will. Some people have this romantic idea that if they're with the right one, their soulmate, then they won't have to tell them certain things. They won't have to give them guidance or direction on how to help fulfill their needs or wants in the relationship. That just doesn't exist. So you need to not have that fantasy. Expecting your partner to just know sets them up for failure. And then you wind up with resentment and you wind up putting them in double binds all the time. So you need to say it anyway. And the reasons you need to say it anyway is, first of all, because you need it. If you have a need, you need to be able to say what the need. And that alone makes it valid. It doesn't have to be logical, fair, or convenient to be worth expressing if it's a need. Now I'm going to use a few examples from life. At the top here, I need to be greeted warmly before we talk about difficult things. There's a situation where after Paula and I got married and we moved into the same house together, I was not used to having an automatic garage door. I wasn't in a place before where I parked in a garage. It was either under a carport or in a driveway. So now that I'm leaving from a garage and closing a garage door, I would very often forget. And so the first thing that I would hear when I would reunite with Paula would be a complaint about leaving the door open, about leaving the garage door open, and how that made her feel unsafe and all that kind of thing. And it's a legitimate complaint, but it would be the first thing I would be hit with. And that did not sit very well with me. And another thing, to bring Jordan Peterson up again, another thing that we learned from him, it's not the huge big things. Like, you think in life that, oh, I got to get the wedding right and I got to get the house buying right and that sort of thing. But you need to pay attention to the things that you do every day. Like, how do you have meals? How do you greet each other when you come home? How do you Like, do you like the plates that you eat on? Anything like that. Those kind of things matter. And so we had a talk, and I made it very clear. I'm like, I don't want to have this nervous anticipation of walking on eggshells of what I'm going to encounter when I see you. I always want it to be positive. So even if I've left the garage door open or forgot to take the dishes out of the sink and put them in the dishwasher or whatever it is, don't tell me any of that stuff first. I want a warm, happy greeting, like you're happy that I'm in your life and that you like to see me. And it's it's pretty simple. Of course, she obliges all the time, and it makes perfect sense. And it's this wonderful thing every time we come home. It's this fabulous thing where we greet each other. So little things like that need to be gotten right, and that's something that I know that I need. Okay, I need a certain degree of financial autonomy. I have an addiction to a certain kind of shoes right now, and I need to be able to buy them when I want. Now, in my relationship with Paula, we have all of our finances separate. It's like we're two different, things, and there's no animosity there. There's no tit for tat. It's just we separated all the household expenses and the mortgage equitably, and we kind of have our own thing going. I've got my own set of finances. She's got her own set of finances, and it works very well for us, and we really like it. And that's a huge improvement for me over a situation I had previously in my life where I had somebody, barking up my fourth point of contact every time any minor thing happened. Stop at Dairy Queen for a, ice cream cone or something like that. So little things like that. And now that I see the difference between, I know that that's a need that I have. I need to be asked nicely to move my elbow, for example. And this is something that I learned as well. When you get in the vehicle, oftentimes you put your, I'm kind of a big guy, so I'll put my elbows, one on the armrest of the door and then one on the center console of the car. Well, the center console, in order for somebody else to get in there to get the car gum out or whatever they're getting, I need to move my elbow. And so somebody could say, move your elbow. Or they could ask nicely. I don't really like being talked to that way. And I've found this trend, and I don't know where this comes from really, but where women in a family, and I've noticed this with mother, sister, wife, for some reason, they will take liberties at being mean with people close to them that they would never do with a stranger, or certainly wouldn't do with a coworker or with their boss or somebody like anybody else that they respected to any degree whatsoever. And so I heard of this thing called stranger on the bus rule, and I at least need to be treated as nicely as a stranger on a bus. And if you were sitting next to a stranger on a bus or maybe a stranger on an airplane, you wouldn't say, move your elbow off the armrest. You wouldn't speak to them with this amount of frustration all the time, or like you're already annoyed with them. You would kindly ask them, do you mind if I get into the center console? Do you mind if I use the armrest too? And I want to be treated at least that nicely. I need to be treated at least that nicely. So I know that that's a need that I have, and I've been able to express that, and that never happens now. Never happens. Okay, so that's pretty amazing. I need emotional safety to share my real thoughts. Like, if I'm going to be in a relationship with you, I need to be able to tell you what I really think. And I mean what I really think. I need to be able to say that. I can't be walking on eggshells. I can't be holding things back all the time because I'm afraid how the other person is reacting. I need this. So if I'm going to be in a relationship, and if you're starting a relationship with somebody, this might be something you need to say to them. I need to be able to say what I'm really thinking or feeling, good, bad, and ugly. I need you to be able to receive it without becoming emotionally dysregulated or threatening to end the relationship, no matter how bad it is. I need an emotionally, psychologically safe place to be able to say what I need. That's something that I need. Now, very often, needs can be very simple, but they're not obvious because they're clouded by all sorts of complex dynamics about the situation you're in, the circumstances you're in, and the dynamics of interaction between you and the other person and what your expectations of their reaction might be, and those sorts of things. And your needs are not always rational to others. So it's important that you have a partner, if you're going to be in a relationship, where you can state your needs, because not only can they not read your mind, but they certainly can't read your mind if they can't predict or would not typically expect you to have the kind of need that you have. And they can be different for different people. And these are very deeply tied to your inner world, your nervous system, your vagus nerve. All sorts of systems in your body are connected to whether or not you're getting your needs met and whether or not you can say what your needs are in a psychologically and emotionally safe space in the context of a relationship. Okay, you don't want to be walking around nervous and anxious all the time. That's no fun. So in order to know what you need to be able to know what you need and then to be able to advocate for yourself, self-advocate. We teach this to our children all the time. And so you need to build the skill of self-awareness. And sometimes we call this somatic awareness. Some people call this mindfulness. Don't be scared by any of these words. It's just being aware of what's going on in your body. So you can take inventory regularly. You can think about it. Something that's really good is to keep a needs journal. What do I need? What do I need in this moment? I recommend keeping some kind of journal like this all the time, but you might want to do it for at least 2 weeks, and you'll be surprised what kinds of things come up. What made you feel good today? What made you feel anxious today? What made you triggered today? What made you emotionally exacerbated or frustrated at somebody today? What caused you to be frustrated and shut down? What caused you to be irritated? And what would have helped in that moment? Like, what can you do in the future so that you don't react in that way? For example, I know that if a conversation gets heated, that I need to walk away until things are cooled down. I believe in striking while the iron's cold, and once a conversation gets heated, you're not going to make much progress anyway because you're in your limbic system. So I know that I need to walk away. Now, in the past, when I would express that need, I would get accused of trying to run away from a difficult conversation, which is not the right way to handle somebody who's trying to tell you what they need. So you need to practice saying your needs clearly and kindly. You want to use I statements. You don't want to use a bunch of statements that require changes external to you. Like, I need you to do this and you to this. I need you to speak more quietly. You might say, I need a few moments of peace and quiet. I need things to be quieter. You say something like that. So try to state things in a way where it talks about what you need rather than what you want other people to do about what you need necessarily, especially if you don't want it to come out sounding accusatory or anything like that. And it's a basic rule of therapy and psychology for you can't fix the outside world. That's what Jesus is talking about in John 17 when he says, I pray not the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. He's not saying he never prays for anybody in the world. What he's saying is, like, you can't, like that whole concept of you can either prepare the child for the road ahead of them or you can prepare the road for the child. Well, you can't prepare the road for the child, so you have to prepare the child for the road. So I pray not for the world. I can't change everything in the world, but what I can change is me and how I deal with it, okay? You might say something like, I need a few minutes to decompress before we talk more. You might say, I feel anxious when we don't know the plan. I need clarity. Keep your tone and timing in mind when you're saying these things. Don't lead with complaints. Lead with self-discovery. I like this phrase where I read that some ancient Greek poet said that every person's mind is as vast and unknown as the night sky. And so I like to think of a cosmos, an entire universe inside everybody's mind that's just as unexplored. And every time we talk and interact, I'm exploring, just like in Star Trek, with that much enthusiasm and wonder about what we're going to find. I don't feel like I've got the person figured out, and I'm not upset when they surprise me with something new. It's exciting. It's like watching a flower bloom that changes what kind of flower it is all the time. So it should be fun and exciting to explore your partner, the cosmos of their mind. I actually bought a little toy. After I read that, it impressed me so much. I bought a little toy of the Millennial Falcon just to remind me to treat people that way when I talk to them. And it's this relationship with Paula. Every time I encounter her, I don't act like I've got her figured out or she needs to act within the same way that I've come to expect within the past 6 years. There's new things behind every planet. You know, you ever go exploring through the woods, there's something new over every little hill, and I just can't wait to see what that is. And it really helps you relate better that way. So and then you're discovering what's in your mind too. You don't have yourself figured out. You need to be in explore mode and discovery with what makes up you and who you are becoming. And you also might want to think about acute needs versus chronic needs. Okay. Like I need some space right now. Like right now I need to walk away. I need a few moments. Or you might have chronic needs. I need weekly time to get alone and to feel centered. I knew somebody in a previous life who would wait until they were just absolutely falling apart at the seams to say that they need a break and need to leave and go away from the kids and have a week away on some kind of vacation by themselves or with their sister or family member, something like that. And they weren't able to anticipate and express their needs ahead of time to where they could just say, hey, every 5 to 6 weeks, I need a few days on my own. They couldn't say that. They would wait until the need had gone unmet for so long before they expressed it that it became an inconvenience for everybody else in life. So you don't want to do that to people. The people in your life love you, and they want to help you meet your needs. They're not sitting around feeling inconvenienced by you. They want to accommodate and give you what you need. So don't be afraid to ask the people in your life for what you need. So you're also going to make space for other people's needs. Once you learn to voice your needs, you naturally become better at receiving other people's needs. You're going to have more empathy about putting yourself in their shoes as well. Now, the goal isn't to win, but to be known and to know each other. Relationships thrive on mutual understanding, not perfect agreement. Now, I want to give you an example of this so you can understand where I'm coming from. Very often, couples make the mistake of thinking that when you have a conversation, you have to reach some sort of resolution or some sort of agreement about how you're going to proceed forward from here so that XYZ mistake never happens again. And what I want you to do is I want you to try backing off that expectation and set a much lower bar. And the much lower bar is simply that my partner understands my perspective. We're not going to set a policy about it. We're not going to necessarily change things. We're not going to say we're never doing this again or we're always doing this again. I just want to be understood. And that's the win for this conversation. And then for them, you want to understand them as well. So both people need to feel understood. You need to be able to repeat back to them what they've said in a non-argumentative way, a very charitable way, and not frame it in some way that makes it sound terrible to where the person genuinely feels heard and understood. And let that just sit for a minute. And what you'll find is that after that kind of marinates, you'll wake up the next day, and instead of feeling like the problem is still unsolved because you didn't reach an agreeable resolution, you kind of feel like you just feel better that your partner knows how you really feel, and you might even together outgrow the problem. You can outgrow the problem. It's strange how that happens. It's difficult to come up with examples, and what I'm trying to keep is a short video. But I hope you can envision that, and I want you to try that. So we're at a preliminary recap point here before we go on with the rest of the content. So you want to say what you need, but first you need to know what you need. This is an act of maturity, humility, and courage. Now think about this. If your partner cannot take you saying what you actually need, but those are your needs, should they really be your partner? Now, of course, it's important to know this before you get embroiled too deep with somebody. You need to know this about yourself. You need to know what your needs are before the onset of a relationship so that they don't come out after you've had 17 kids and you're all embroiled financially together. You know, partner selection is a huge deal. Okay? Now, if you're already embroiled in a relationship, you need to start doing the work now, slowly and carefully, but it's got to happen. A functional relationship isn't built on mind reading or sacrifice. It's built on self-awareness and honest exchange. Okay. Some people sacrifice too much and they become a liability through sacrifice. Okay. And this goes back to the know what you want video too. Now, if you're enjoying what you're getting here and you would like to see more content like this, we invite you to support the channel. We have 5 different electronic ways to do this at beyondthefundamentals.com. Click the donate tab in the menu. And we invite you to join everyone else who is supporting what we've got going, because we got to keep the lights on. This content takes a lot of time, space, energy, resources, and money to produce. And if you'd like to see it happen, please partner with us. Also, if you'd like to have a one-on-one session with yours truly, you can book a paid one-on-one consultation with me at the website. Go to beyondthefundamentals.com and scroll down to book a one-on-one consultation. And in that consultation, we will take all of the fluencies and all the domains that we have built on the Beyond the Fundamentals channels over the years, and we will apply them to your situation. Okay? It's hard to address every personal situation in a broad video that many people are going to watch. So that's why we made these available, so that we can apply all of these domain fluencies to your particular situation. And those who have participated in these so far, I've got nothing but positive feedback, and people have been very helped. And people are even saying their families are back together again, their daughters talking to them again. Got all kinds of positive things happening because of these one-on-one sessions. So if that's something that you think would be beneficial, that is available, okay? Now we're going to move on with some concepts. We're going to start with emotional granularity. Many people struggle to express what they need because they don't have the language for their emotional states. We, as literate people, are used to thinking in words, and if you don't have the vocabulary for what's going on, then your mind doesn't have any real estate for those ideas to live on, okay? So it's very helpful to constantly grow your vocabulary in different domains and your emotional states. So I encourage you to take this emotion wheel, print it out, put it on your phone, save it to your photos, put it in your favorites, something like that. And whenever you're having an emotional moment, look through it. Maybe you're happy. Or maybe at the end of the day, think about different parts of your day and take the emotion wheel and go through and use this when you're journaling, something like that. Now, you'll get to a point where you don't need the emotion wheel anymore, but starting with it, putting these words in front of your face, will help you become more fluent with the different emotions that you're feeling. And also in our FSI series and on these videos, we encourage people to know where in your body you are feeling these emotions. That's just as important as well, part of that somatic awareness. So the more specific your emotional vocabulary, the more likely you are to correctly identify your needs. Instead of just sad, is it grief? Is it disappointment? Is it loneliness? Is it nostalgia? Knowing what you feel gives you a shortcut to knowing what you need. Like disappointment might mean you need closure or realignment of expectations, something like that. Okay, so work on, I know there's lots of couples that I talk to where they're frustrated with each other, and part of their frustration is that they can't express themselves accurately or articulately. It's funny that I would mess that word up, or at a high level of resolution. So they know what they're feeling, but they can't get it out right, and therefore they can't be understood. And this is very frustrating for them. And I've seen this go both ways. So you need to be a lifelong learner. Constantly update your vocabulary in all the domains that affect you. And of course, in relationship, we want to have nonviolent communication, a simple model for expressing needs without blame or defensiveness. Now, when we say nonviolent, we're talking about not being rivalrous or antagonistic, even if you're not throwing things at each other or hitting each other. And so you can start with observation, like when I see or when I hear, like when you come in and complain about the garage door, I feel upset and tense and anxious. And then what I need is to be greeted properly, or like you're happy to see me, would you be willing to do that for me? So you can use this observation, feeling, need, request model as a way to express what your needs are to your partner. When I see, hear this, I feel this, because I need this, would you be willing to? And then ask them to accommodate whatever your need is. So this model helps turn emotional outbursts or vague complaints into honest, vulnerable requests for connection. You could say, when I come home and no one greets me, I feel invisible. I need warmth and connection. Would you be willing to meet me at the door when I get back? Something like that. That is a little more generic and not so specific to my situation that I was telling you about before. Then there's something called internal family systems, and some people struggle with this, especially when you're first related to it or introduced to it. But we think of ourselves as one person, but we really aren't. Like Donald Hoffman says that inside each person, we're really a network of collected consciousnesses. And we find this to be true also just with brain conditions. Ian McGilchrist talks about when people get their corpus callosum cut because they're having seizures or something like that, that they operate and function in a lot of ways just fine, but then there are some kind of difficulties. For example, you might go to the closet and you're trying to pick up the green shirt, but the other hand is trying to put the green shirt back on the hanger, and the other hand's trying to pick up the blue shirt. Or you might be going to open the cabinet, but the other hand's trying to close the cabinet. You actually have both wills in your mind. All of those things are inside you. Now, we unify all of our different motivations pretty seamlessly into one action. And you probably understand the feeling of, I do want to go to the gym, but I don't want to go to the gym. I do need to wake up with my alarm. I do want to hit the snooze one more time. Now, we unify all these into one. You can only do one action, and you're not going to fight against yourself. So once you make the decision, your whole body agrees with it, and that's what you do. Well, that there are more personalities in there, and it's not like it's split personality. That's not what I'm trying to say. But anyway, we are comprised of a whole host of collected consciousnesses inside us that each have different wills, motivations, beliefs, desires, all sorts of things. So sometimes the reason we don't know what we need is because we have competing internal parts with conflicting agendas. A part of you wants connection. Another part of you fears rejection. A part of you wants rest. Another part of you is afraid of being seen as lazy. So getting to the root of your needs may require listening to those internal voices, discovering what they all are, and what they're protecting. And self-advocacy can begin with internal clarity, having clarity about how you are on the inside. Now you know what to advocate, how to advocate for yourself on the outside. So if you ever do go to therapy, it might be very interesting to find somebody who does internal family systems. I always advocate that if you're going to go to therapy, personally, my preference is for people not to be so medicated. Like I wouldn't recommend going to somebody who's just going to put you on a pill. They're basically a drug dealer. But there are psychologists out there who can teach you cognitive behavioral therapy, or who can do EMDR or IFS or these kinds of therapies. And I highly recommend these. I think they're very, very helpful, and people should become familiar with them, and they should try them. And while we're talking about that, I don't think that psychological therapy should be something that you see as only when you have a problem. You know, a lot of people go to church. You don't just go to church when you have a problem, okay? You kind of go all the time. And I think if people saw therapy that way, psychological therapists that way, it might be a more healthy way to approach things. Everyone needs a little psychological fluency in their lives, and it never hurts. You should always be reading a book, having somebody that you're seeing semi-regularly at least, and have conversations about these kinds of things. It's definitely an area where you can't afford to not have fluency in these areas. And that's especially true the more you have to lose. Like if you have a relationship that you very much value, you better become psychologically fluent, okay? If you have money that you want to keep, you better become psychologically fluent, okay? When you have nothing to lose, being psychologically illiterate doesn't really cost you anything because you don't have anything anyway. But when you've got something to lose, one of the protections that we can have is just basic, simple psychological fluency, understanding how humans work, including yourself and everyone else that's in your life. There's the issue of self-compassion. Many people deny their needs because they think it's selfish. So Kristen Neff reframes this: self-care is not self-indulgence, it's self-respect. And this helps for two reasons. The more you care for yourself, the less other people have to pick up the slack and care for you. And also, the more you respect yourself, the way you respect yourself is training others how much to respect you. So if you don't respect yourself, no one else will either. If you treat yourself like a doormat, everyone else will too. Okay? So self-respect is very important for a host of reasons. Self-compassion practices, they increase our willingness to ask for what we need without shame. You might think of questions like, if someone I loved were in this situation, what would I want for them? Can I offer myself the same kindness? This is especially true when it comes to relationships and when it comes time to end them. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to stay together for the kids. And what if your kid was in the situation that you're in? What would you want them to do? Would you want them to self-advocate more assertively than you are doing? Or would you want them to continue being treated like a doormat? Okay? So we need to learn how to work these things out and train our kids by example, that we need to have some self-respect and we need to have boundaries with the other people in our lives, and they're not going to walk all over us like doormats. It's important to learn about attachment theory because when you know your attachment style, you know what your needs are, and you can know how to advocate for yourself. The 3 attachment styles are secure attached, anxious attached, and avoidant attached. And your style influences how you relate to your needs and how you express them in relationships. Anxious attached people might feel guilty for asking for their needs. Yes, that's my style, by the way. Avoidant types might not even recognize their own needs until it's a crisis. So becoming aware of your style can help you navigate needs more clearly and with less internal conflicts. And this same thing goes for expressing your wants as well as your needs too, but you can go back and watch the previous video for that and how to find the balance between that. There's trauma survival mode. When people have spent a long time in survival mode due to poverty or abuse or overwork or chronic trauma, they often lose access to their needs entirely. You stop asking what you need and you only ask, what must I do to get through the day? The journey back to knowing your needs is often the journey from surviving to thriving. It requires slowing down, noticing, and believing you're allowed to want more than just survival. I think this is very important in light of a book. There's a book called it's on complex PTSD by Pete Walker, I think his name is. It's a very important book because it talks about complex PTSD. It's chronic forms of trauma that occur over long periods of time or occur repeatedly. And when I say trauma, I'm not necessarily talking about physical trauma per se, but things that get you in the 4F mode of your limbic system, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. Anything that puts you in those defensive or survival mode instincts of your limbic system on a constant, ongoing basis. It could have been an older sibling who was always on your case. It could be a parent who was just constantly a minute longer than when you really needed them when you were 2.5. Could be anything like that. Okay, so it's important to understand your connection between trauma and what trauma you may have had and the kind of personality traits or possibly disorders that you have as a result of that. And that can tell you what you can do to heal them and you can't be in survive and thrive mode at the same time. And here in the civilization that we live in today, we're not being chased around by lions all the time, at least not where I live. We should be able to be in a thriving mode all the time. Surround yourself with people who are in thriving mode so you're not constantly having to be in one of the 4F modes because something's always threatening you. Don't have people in your life that are constantly threatening you. Get them out of your life. I've had to do this in my life, and I recommend other people do it in theirs. Life is much, much better when you can just focus on flourishing and thriving rather than just trying to survive because the people in your life are constantly putting you in fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. Now, I put this other note over here, probably out of context. Knowing your needs is connected directly to your goals and what your objectives are. So it's important to set goals and objectives, and that way you will know what your needs are in order to achieve those objectives. Well, I'm trying to lose 25 pounds. Therefore, I need to eat this and do this kind of exercise and get this amount of sleep, that sort of thing. Okay, so your goals are directly going to affect your needs. And we want to understand the window of tolerance. How much can you take? Now, we all function best within certain emotional zone when we're not too overwhelmed, when we're not too shut down. When I went into Army recruiting, of all things, they made us take these personality tests, and they made us take these classes on understanding what your optimal level of stress is. And the reason they did this in recruiting is because the level of stress tended to be extremely high in recruiting. And so if you don't have enough stress, you're not optimally motivated to do whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. And if you have too much stress, you're overwhelmed, and that's not very good for you at all. So you need to understand that peak stress point where you're properly motivated but not overwhelmed and not producing all this cortisol in your body, that sort of thing. So when there's a guy, he does a lot of podcasts, and you've probably seen him. I'm going to bring up my laser pointer here, where he talks about when people are low on, when the CIA, he has a CIA background, and when they were trying to learn what makes somebody tick, so that the CIA could figure out how to maneuver with this person. I'm trying not to say manipulate, but I guess it's manipulation. Anyway, what they learned was that you really find out what a person's made of, what their real values are when they are low on energy, time, and money. When you take those things away from them, they're much more likely to become emotionally dysregulated, and you get to see kind of who they really are. They're more liable to act in an unregulated way. What that means for you is that understanding what your needs are. You probably express this with yourself when you say, "Oh, I'm hangry. I'm hangry right now." It means you're angry because you're hungry. Okay. And there's probably other needs that you have in your life, whether it's sleep or affection or things like that, that if they don't come at certain intervals, you start to behave or think or feel in certain ways and become unregulated in certain ways. It's good to know this about yourself so that you can express this about yourself and so that you can make sure you're getting those needs met. So when you're outside the window, when you don't have the amount of energy that you need to be operating optimally, or the time, or the money, you don't want to be overreacting. So you want to be able to correct for these things. Know that you're probably going to be dysregulated and correct for them so that you don't act dysregulated around the people in your life that you love. You don't want to overreact and go into fight or flight mode. You don't want to shut down and go into freeze or fawn mode. Identifying what you need often requires getting back into your window of tolerance. So you might know that I need to generate some more time. I need to manage my time better. I need some more energy. I need to get some more rest. I need to manage my budget better and stop overspending or something like that. So some techniques. There are breathing techniques, pausing techniques, movement, journaling, checking in with someone safe. And these should be things that you do on a regular basis. Like, don't just do breathing practices when you're stressed out, okay? Do breathing practices every day. I do daily meditations where I'm concentrating on my breathing every day, so that when it comes time to have to call on that due to a situation, it's second nature, it's fast, and it's easy. Okay? And then movement techniques could be something as you could be practicing Tai Chi or yoga, or you could be playing a sport like volleyball, okay? Something that brings your mind in, gets you into a flow state where you're also employing your body. These things are very helpful to do, knowing what you need. And then there are self needs versus shared needs, okay? You need to distinguish between the needs that you can meet yourself and then the needs that you can meet, the needs you can meet yourself, like getting enough rest, journaling, spiritual practices like meditation, doing your breathing exercises, for example, or needs that you can co-create with others, like establishing a connection, having affection, transacting reassurance, transacting affection, those kinds of things with somebody that you're in relationship with. Understand what the difference between those are, okay? There are certain things that I need in a relationship that I do not necessarily need from other people if I'm not in relationship with them. But if you're going to be in relationship with me, here's what I need in order for it to feel like a relationship. Not all needs are met in relationship, but all relationships benefit when people know and communicate what belongs to them versus what belongs between them. Okay? So me and Paula understand what needs she has that she will meet herself, and what needs I have that I will meet myself, and then what needs we have that we share between us that we are going to meet together. Okay? So know what you need, be able to self advocate, and say what you need. Nobody's a mind reader. If you enjoyed the video, we invite you to support the channel. Couldn't do this without you. And again, a reminder that if you would like a one-on-one consultation, we do offer these on the website. Scroll down the home page, and we can get you booked for a paid one-on-one consultation where we take all the domains of fluency that we have built on this channel over the years and apply them to your personal situation. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.